All right, so I'm Nicola, and I'm facilitating this conversation with...
I'm Dr. Dirk.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm facilitating this conversation, I'll be honest. But I guess I've watched this develop over the past, 6 or 7 years. And we're going to go into a little bit about what you've been working on recently, which is what exactly? Do you want to give us a little brief rundown of what it is?
It's a seminar and online course called Your Health Blueprint.
Okay.
How about that? Simple as that.
Simple as that. Well, can you give us a little introduction about who you are and what led to this development of, because we'll get into what a blueprint is and explain what a blueprint is, but what brought you down this path and way of thinking?
Well, this is actually a project that I kind of thought about 30 years ago when I was in chiropractic school, in my second semester or second quarter. I was looking at all the data that was coming in and trying to well, what if this is actually going to be useful when I'm talking to clients? And so I've always been just watching and looking for what is useful, what actually will change people's lives. And then looking at the people around me, whether it's instructors in chiropractic or anywhere, and saying, well, okay, so what are you doing? How are you applying this? How's your life and how's your health? Because ultimately, I wasn't interested in chiropractic first and foremost. I was interested in health. And so over the years, I've learned more and more things. And now I'm at a place where that needs to all be, what we think is true, I think for most of us, we need to just scramble that and start afresh. Because we live in a world of massive data overload. And so if we want to lose weight, let's say, there's 100 diets. And people are really worried about getting the right one and doing it right. Or if they want to get into exercise, well, what's the right exercise? And they want to figure that out and do it right. And then they go at the diet, they go at the exercise, and they don't lose weight. Or whatever it is, right? So many times. That's why it's a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry probably. I don't know what it is. So the question is, why is that the case? And then there's my father, who rode his bicycle till he was 96. When he was 80, we rode across Missouri in 5 days. When he was 94, he stopped riding his two-wheel bike for the summer because it was really hot in St. Louis. And so then he got a recumbent because he lost his balance. He gave up his keys voluntarily for his car when he was 98 and lived to be 101.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And he never followed anybody's diets or programs and whatnot. And he was active and, height and weight proportionate for the most part, and on and on and on it goes. So always looking at a bigger story and a bigger understanding. And that's really what led me to Your Health Blueprint.
Yeah, so can you explain now that we've gotten a little bit of what drove you to think about health in this way, can you tell us a little bit about what is a blueprint? What is a blueprint?
Yeah, so the blueprint is it's all the inside story. It's the core material. It's the core beliefs. It's the core images and experiences and perceptions and all the things that are inside us that are predominantly in our unconscious, that are really running our show, whether we realize it or not.
The inner world.
The inner world. Right? And that's super important because if I want to change what I eat, let's say, or if I want to change how I respond to people in my life, but I keep making bad choices, well, why? Because I know, my conscious mind knows that if I did it differently, it would be better for me. The outcome in my life would be better. I would feel better if I lost weight or if I had better communications or whatever. But somehow the action doesn't follow that conscious knowing. And it doesn't, because the action is always going to follow the core belief.
Gotcha.
So that core material, that blueprint, if I want a different output, because the blueprint is like your software. And your body's like your computer. But in this case, your body is very changeable. On a computer, the software changes what's on the screen maybe, but it doesn't change the computer itself. Well, in a human being, changing the software actually changes the human being. And it changes the experience of being a human being.
So what I'm hearing is that what we've been taught is all backwards.
Yes.
So it's the inner that affects the outer, not the outer that affects the inner.
Well, it's both, right? So of course it's both, because there's this constant interaction.
Okay.
But it's the programming on the inside that decides that, right? So like the programming is made up of nature and nurture. The nature, it would be DNA, right? But scientific research shows that DNA doesn't show up and give a person cancer. It doesn't show up and give them this, that, or the other thing. That only happens if the DNA has whatever sequences for that, and the environment is appropriate.
Okay.
The environment defines how the DNA shows up. So the environment definitely has an impact. But the environment is not just external environment, it's our internal environment as well. The stress.
Environment.
Environment, right, exactly.
And so you talk about how it's our inner programming, but I know in your course you talk about it being an individualistic thing per person. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, as much as we share in common as human beings, your programming is different than mine.
Okay.
Your DNA is however different, because of your parents are different than my parents. We're different people, right? And then the moment you were conceived, the moment I was conceived, the environment around us, we started taking that in. And so all the things that I've been exposed to are different than all the things that you're exposed to, as they are for every single one of us.
So it's almost, what I'm hearing is like it's almost pretty much impossible for one singular program to fit everyone across the board. That's what you're talking about. Yeah,
although there are similarities, right? So, we all have similarities. Like most everybody has some kind of abandonment issue, whether they realize it or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so just as a kid, you wanted something and your mom and dad weren't there, right?
Yeah.
You can feel abandoned, right? And
Yes.
some, maybe they were abandoned.
Right.
Actually. So, and that creates issues that wire around it. And I really like the book, The Four Agreements, by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about everything going on in us is an agreement we made. Teacher said you were really good at math. You're like, oh, I'm really good at math. You agreed with them. Or somebody said you're really good at math. You're like, yeah, no, I'm not really. I don't really know all of my calculus or whatever. So no, I'm not really. Yeah, there are people who are better at math than I am, so I'm not really good, right? Or you're good with money, or you're bad with your money, or you're good with color, and you're not good. Whatever it is, right? And unconsciously, we're making agreements all the time. Oh, they're right. Oh, yeah. And that goes into our personality and our identity and how we're supposed to show up and who we think we're supposed to be. And we don't even know that we're just running a program of all these different agreements we've made, because it just comes out so readily.
That is so fascinating how what we think is running the show is just not running, or what we think is running the show. There's so much else behind it. There's
so much else. It's the thing that comes up for me real easy to share this is if you have a family, right? You're out in the world, you're growing up now, and you're out in the family. If you have siblings, and you come together at mom and dad's house, everybody falls back into the same pattern. The conversation kind of becomes the same pattern. The personalities show up in the same ways that they do. All shows up into this pattern. You've all been out in the world doing all whatever, right, as grown-ups. But you come back to that family and you all show up in the same pattern. And that's because that stuff was put in when we're young, a lot of it. And there it sits, and there it runs our show, and we don't even know it.
Wow. I'm sorry. I started thinking about my family, and I was like, how true that is. And it's like, how do we become conscious of that then?
That's the trick.
Yeah. Well, that's my question. Like, how do we become, this is one of the questions that I have is just like, if our blueprint ends up working against us, following in the pattern of like your example of the family, maybe our family patterns weren't that healthy. Maybe they're really traumatic or toxic or whatever. And if it's working against us and showing up in other places other than our family, how can we change it? How do we become aware of it? How do we get to know it?
Yeah, well, first you got to come to understand, right? You got to, mindfulness is a key part. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep going from diet to diet to diet and failing? Oh, well, I just like alcohol. Or I just like, to spend time with, his birthday parties. Oh, there's a lot of things going on. And I just have a lot of events, and I just, well, why do we have to socialize and eat with, socialize with food? Why do I have to partake in the food right? And it's all ingrained in us. And there's a feeling that goes, when we go against that grain, there's a feeling that's really uncomfortable. And most of us don't want to feel the feelings. So first we got to realize that there's something going on that's not working for us. Because a lot of these programs can work for us, right? In certain ways of our life, too. So it's not like they're just all bad. There's programs that work well, right? But we got to be aware that there's some kind of schism. Then we got to actually go in and feel what's going on. And that's where some help and support and this, that, and the other thing can be really, really useful. And there are many ways to access this stuff. I do some one-on-one coaching with people. That's to get them into this experience. A lot of people now are doing plant medicine journeys and different things to get their conscious mind out of the way and their conscious story out of the way so they can experience themselves in sort of the bigness of all of this in different ways. So that's also going on. But it is absolutely key to get into the feelings. I was working with a guy actually last week, and a couple days later, and he's about 100 pounds overweight, and a couple days later he texted me to let me know that he can remember, he stood up from a chair and could actually feel all of his weight on his bones. Right? So instead of just getting up and not noticing it, he's just getting up, he actually felt his weight. And he realized, oh my gosh, this is why I'm tired all the time.
Yeah.
Now on the outside, you look at him and you'd say, well, how could you not feel? You're 300 pounds. You're a big, big, big guy. How could you not feel that? And although this is really hard to get until you actually experience and get it, we all are doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's not our physical weight. Maybe it's the way we move away from a conversation that we don't like. Maybe it's the way we avoid a person. Maybe it's a way when somebody wants to get close to us, we shut off. Maybe it's there's so many ways that we do it, and we're not even conscious of it. Oh, of course I need to walk out of the room right now. I need something from the kitchen. And we just think, well, of course I need something from the kitchen. We have no awareness of that.
Yeah.
Oh, of course I'm not looking you in the eye because I got to think over here. Well, really? Why? Oh, because there's something about eye contact that's not comfortable for me, right? And I'm not judging any of this. This is not about judgment. It really is just about becoming aware of who and what we are and how we operate so that we can have more sovereignty in our life. We can be our own masters instead of letting this unconscious thing that's not necessarily working for us in certain ways continue us down repetitious patterns of frustration and sadness and not growth, not creativity, not excitement, not openness, not fluidity, because these parts get inside and they actually do damage. Ultimately they're going to do damage to our physical body if they are not working for us, right?
Right.
So we get a sadness, a loneliness, an abandonment, from when we're a child, or, abuse of some kind, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
and all of these things, it's not the size of the thing that happens to us or the degree, it's what we do with it, how much we fester on it. And a lot of times we fester it in our bodies and we don't even know because we've blocked it out. But it festers and festers and festers and festers, and then it shows up as a shoulder pain or a hip pain or a heart issue or, you know, a stomach issue or cancer or diabetes or who knows what, right? Those are all aspects of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating because I know you've mentioned that you started bringing that into your practice with people now, is like when they come in to get adjusted and they're like, oh, you know, I've got hip pain or I've got shoulder pain or whatever. You have this really cool book. I don't remember what the title of it, but it's like it shows you every single emotional maybe feeling or whatever someone is suppressing and what that's telling you, what the body's telling you. And that's not something that I was really like open to for a long time because I was one of those people that was disconnected from my body. And it's really, really cool when you can go through and you can see like how accurate the body is and how accurate it can tell you things just in your environment and how powerful and eye-opening and truth-telling it can be. And why do you think, in your opinion and in your experience and your journey, why is this not more readily taught to people?
Good question.
Why is this hidden?
Well, I definitely think it is hidden. And one, it's complicated in some way. Two, it goes against the materialistic narrative that we are a body, right? We are a physical thing in the physical universe and that's it. Right? It goes against this whole Newtonian idea or whatever, right? That this is it. This is just what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think, you know, without going too deep into that, it's not an accident that we're split this way. It's not an accident because when we are taught that our body's just our body and it needs things from the external world, it needs surgeries from the external world, it needs da-da-da-da-da, which it does to some degree at times. But when we come to realize that we're more than that, and we can be a self-healing thing, and that takes a whole lot of power away from other people. It takes a whole lot of power away from other people. I have been working with a guy, and he started coming in, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago for chiropractic care, the advanced biostructural correction that I do, which is a very specific process that helps posture, as you know. And after some length of time and improving, you know, I was working on letting him know, hey, you know, there's more to this that's going on with you than just your body. And he did not want to believe it. He didn't want to believe it, but, you know, stuff going in conversations. Finally, it took a while, but he finally did a one-on-one session with me.
Okay.
And now he's done several of them. And I don't know if it was after the first one, but I think it was after the first one. He's like, oh my God, this isn't just my body. And he has transformed his life and who he is, how he thinks of himself, how he experiences himself, phenomenally. Wow. In just 3 months, 2 months, whatever. But it's been a huge, huge shift just by coming in and working with me to go in and find out what's on the inner landscape. And so, to your point, in my answer to that, I firmly believe that as we all connect with this more, or as more of us connect with this understanding more, and more of us are willing to go in and explore our own lives, and we are willing to have space for another person to explore their life, in non-judgment, in openness, as exploration and curiosity, and learning just some basic ways to access, we will be a far healthier population. And there's no money in that for the economy.
None at all.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think from personal experience, I can say that, I mean, even in this conversation, you explaining all of this, there's really no, you can convey about like 80% of how impactful this is over video. But to get to that last 20, you need to have that interaction and you need to have that space to really, yeah, like you said, feel it. And it's like, until you feel it, you won't know. So
yeah. So how would you share your experience of some just you know, without going too deep?
Yeah.
But you know, from the coaching and.
Sure. Well, I think I shared a little bit of this like last night because you do 2 hours of now in your beautiful home, which we're filming this in, and part of the exercises in 2 hours of now is really getting into it. But I shared in the space of others in a safe area. But I don't recognize, if I were to look back at who I was like 4 months ago, I'm sure I would get to this point where I'm at now. I could have gotten to it on my own, but it would have probably taken probably much longer. But the exponential growth I felt, like I definitely feel more open. I feel more honest with myself. Back, I don't remember when the first time I said, yes, let's do this was. I was so disconnected from myself. I don't even remember the day, but I was just like, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. Since that time, I can connect my inner landscape now with the way it shows up in my life. And whether it's, you know, it shows up in ways in the way that I behave, in the way that I interact with the world, in the way that I interact with people without even thinking about it. Like, I feel like when, you know, I in the past have gone towards like diets or working out or, I don't know, school or my family. Like if I want to make a change, you talk about the blueprint, it's like fighting something. It's like going against the grain. It's like, it's a big struggle and it's just like so arduous that it doesn't last. And so like, I knew intrinsically there was something off within, and that's probably why I reached out, but I didn't know what. And so the part that was missing was really sitting with the discomfort and just feeling it and allowing it and observing it and really holding it in a loving way. And if I wasn't modeled that by someone in my life, having someone else to hold the space so that that can happen, I think was the magic that is required in order to have that transformation, which you have done for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's literally changed everything. And it's still changing.
Yes.
Mind you, in this moment.
You're still alive.
It's still changing. It's still growing. It's so many things. I can't begin to explain like how exciting it is.
Yes.
Yeah, all of it.
Yes. Decades more of change.
Ooh, exciting.
Frightening.
I know. Gosh. Yeah. It's
Nice.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I think this is kind of a good segue to this question. Since I've shared, you know, why I decided to go on this path and kind of decided to, or my winding road I've taken. This one's a little bit more personal to you.
Uh-oh.
I know. Tense up. Why have you chosen to take on this work? Like, what is the driver in your commitment here?
That's a good question, and I have a lot of drive in my commitment to this. And it really boils down to, I think I've been unconsciously moving in this direction for a long time. Maybe 15 years ago, I studied Hakomi for 2 years, a practitioner training program, and Hakomi is a body-centered therapy. That's really fantastic. But I didn't use that in practice for very long. And then in the last, gosh, I keep track of time here, but 2.5 or 3 years now, 3 years ago, I'd had depression throughout my life, as far as I can remember. And a few years ago, I decided that was it. I was done with that. And I would do anything at any cost to get me through my depression.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered plant medicines, and I had never done anything like that prior in my life. And then I found advisors and people I worked with, and that just changed so much, and it opened me up so much and changed the whole trajectory of what matters to me. I've been doing my work for 27 years, and I wanted to work more one-on-one in a deeper way with people, realizing that the blueprint affects everything. So, and then being able to confront my own stuff and love myself for all my flaws and all the things that I've done that I would wish to do again. And then being able to hold people in non-judgment for whatever they've done, that most of us are holding ourselves in judgment for what we've done or what we haven't done as well. And so somewhere in all of that mix, and then I went off to a Sacred Sons event, and I've been to 3 of those, and I did leadership training through them, and finding out what it's like to have that kind of connection with men who are wanting to go deeper. All of that has brought me to a place of really understanding much more what it means to be in connection and community and communion with people. And it's sorely lacking, because this 2 hours of now and the men's circle that I run and all the work that I do it's not about the football game. It's not about, hey, this, that. It's not that surface. It's not about the social media. It's about, who are you at your core? What do you love about? What are you struggling? What, getting to know you, me, who am I? What is in there? What is I, what are my desires? What is unfulfilled? What is, where am I? Because I think we all have so much more. We have so much more. I've seen it. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in people around me. And when we tap into that, life is just so much richer. So much richer.
Yeah.
And we need that. If we want to change the output in the world, which is one of, there's so much violence. And there's so much loneliness and isolation. And there's, all this, wars, constant wars. That's not an accident. That is a byproduct of all of our consciousness, the collective consciousness of all of us. And I can go stop a war. I can't do that single-handedly. I can't stop and change the system single-handedly. But what I can do is I can raise my vibration. I can come to understand it. And I can come to understand the system. And then I can help people connect with themselves. Because I believe that when we fully connect with ourselves, that is full self-love. And when we are truly, truly in self-love, what are we going to want? Well, I'm going to want to take care of the people around me. I'm going to want to take care of my house and the land around me. I'm going to want to take care of the bees and the insects and the animals around me and the plants around me, because I know that without them, I'm not here.
And because you love yourself.
Because I love myself, right? So if we all did that, we'd all have the possibility of, turning this into a Garden of Eden.
Thank you so much for watching us today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified when we release more discussions and related topics around your blueprint. To learn more, you can follow us on our Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify accounts under Inner Guide Wellness. To dive in even deeper into understanding your inner blueprint, you can register for our upcoming Your Health Blueprint seminars by calling the number on the screen. Dates and details can be found in the caption below. If any of this resonated with you, or if you have topics you'd love to hear us cover, please comment below. And don't forget to share this out to your friends and loved ones through your Instagram stories or on your Facebook page to help us spread the word far and wide. Thank you again, and until next time.